So, at the start of 2022, this community immediately went into a giant argument on if we should be banning things in Splatoon 2. There are already quite a few tournaments that are running restricted rule sets, there are some servers trying it out in practice, and today I want to go over the concept of bans in Splatoon, if it's something we should be doing, and if we are going to be banning things, how should it be done, and what pitfalls should be avoided. So that all being said, let's get started. So, why do people want to ban things in the first place? Well, the main reason is likely that we just haven't gotten any brand new content since April 2019, and patches have slowed down. So, in the state we're in right now, where a lot of people don't like the current meta, they may look to weapon bans as a way to shift or get a bit of a new experience. And that is rather valid. We have quite a lot of players who are, quote, retired waiting for the third game, or people who are bored of the current state of things, and banning specific weapons will change what is played and could be a nice change of pace for those players. That being said, I can definitely also see some people who think a bit of weapon bans are going to change the entire state of Splatoon 2, and that's simply not true. You can't really keep Splatoon 2 from feeling like Splatoon 2, you can only change slightly what is used, which might be helpful, but I do want to get right off the bat that people shouldn't expect bans to be game-changing. Another issue is these ban lists would not be universal because, well, a lot of people don't want to play with bans in the first place and would rather have more consistent practice. But secondly, I mean, tournaments after even 4 years of Splatoon 2 can't have universal map lists. Who thinks we're going to get a universal ban list for those tournaments that do want things banned? What we're actually going to see is separate tournaments will be doing their own ban lists based on what they want to see, which means you're going to be practicing constantly different rule sets of different weapons that are being played if you want to win these events. That being said, if you're someone who really hates playing the current meta and you want to see more variance with stuff like maybe a different special in every team comp, or having multiple weapon classes being used at once, bans are still going to allow you to do that, and why not experiment at this point in the game while we're waiting for the sequel? My stance is there's nothing wrong with people experimenting with these tournaments. Whether you're a tournament organizer or a player, it could be a nice change of pace, but these aren't going to suddenly take over normal tournaments or become the standard of play. But that being said, if tournament ban lists are inevitable, how exactly should you go about these restrictions? To talk about this, let's look back to the end of Splatoon 1, because yes, this exact same debate happened then. A big restriction tournament series that happened was Black and Spoon, and their rule set was a bit simpler. You could only have one Kraken and one Bubbler per team comp, and quick respawn was entirely banned. These two things were the most extreme parts of Splatoon 1, so the goal is by banning these, you can have a more diverse and less extreme meta, allowing more things to thrive. However, despite being limited to just one of each per team comp, invincibilities actually became far more broken in Black and Spoon than they were in the normal game. So what exactly happened? So some things like Kraken and Bubbler did force kills that you could do pretty much nothing about, because I mean, they made you invulnerable and had very little knockback. However, quick respawn allowed you to come back into the battle so incredibly quickly that you couldn't possibly have enough Krakens available to win every single team fight. There were just so much fighting happening because you could get back so quickly. But with quick respawn removed from the picture, all of a sudden those Kraken kills, rather than sending someone out of the fight for 5 seconds, would now take them out of the fight for a full respawn time plus super jump out. So Kraken suddenly got way more value than it did normally. Welcome to the struggle of making balance patches. You can accidentally change the meta for the worse without even realizing it because there are so many indirect effects that can happen from banning or limiting things. And this can easily happen in Splatoon 2. People may not like Ink Armor, but remove it and all of a sudden the two aggressive specials of Inkjet and Ultra Stamp suddenly get worse, and we're now having a bunch more displacement specials. Things like Stingray get to become unbelievably obnoxious without their main counters, and you have more missile spam, more Booyah spam, etc. And both these examples are with very minimal changes. The more bans or restrictions you add on to this, the easier it is for there to be an unintended side effect. Some things are also near impossible to limit, such as gear. You want to make a no main power-up tournament? I really hope all the players with main power-up sets can get them changed. If you want to make a tournament that restricts having a sub a quick super jump, all competitive players have a sub a quick super jump on their builds. Guess they have to change their entire sets. Restricting something like gear is near impossible. Bottom line here is even if you are going forward with making a restrictions tournament, they are incredibly easy to mess up or at least have unintended side effects. It's really difficult to predict how one change is going to affect the entire game. Remove armor and missiles, you're going to see a ton more Stingray. If we go back to the Splatoon 1 example and you allow a little bit of QR, people are going to suffer with gear sets, but you will have that increased diversity because you have a bit of QR to counter the limited invincibilities. There are always going to be trade-offs here. That being said, to some people, these trade-offs are actually worth it and are still the change of pace they needed for this game. And if ban lists are to continue and evolve over time, eventually they should get better and better as long as the person making them is okay with adapting and really paying attention to how they affect the game. That being said, we might not even get a long time to adapt, because once the third game comes out, all these ban lists no longer mean anything. Bans, especially in the Splatoon scene, really only happen after the game's life cycle, once there's very minimal patches and no added content. I mean, think about it, when Splatoon 3 launches, we're going to be getting a constant flow of new content. Everyone's going to have to learn and actually develop the game because no one's going to understand a lot of the new mechanics, and there will be frequent balance changes to mix things up. So there really will be no need to ban things anymore. We have gone through objectively worse metas. Stingray used to be able to be usable inside your spawn shield and was literally a game winner in overtime, and that lasted a while, but because we constantly got new things, while people disliked it, it was never something people would stop playing the game over. Even if Splatoon 3 has something game-breaking at the start, it's not gonna last, so people are more or less just gonna have fun with it and wait for it to be inevitably patched. So we've gone over why people want bans, how they work, the problems with them, and why they're gonna be irrelevant in Splatoon 3. But what exactly should we do right now? Well, bans are gonna happen whether we want it or not. It's not gonna be a mainstream thing. It will happen for some tournaments and for some scrims. For some people, this might help them. For others, it might turn out to not change the game as much as they would have liked. Either way, you can't really stop people from experimenting with them either way, and if it does end up being fun for them, there's not really much harm. That being said, there'll be a big variance on how these restriction tournaments will go, and they can certainly be done to a varying degree of success. My biggest advice for those who wish to test restrictions is to get goals in mind first. What exactly about the game do you want to change, and what are you willing to compromise on to get that change? Do you want less Tenna missiles? That's fine, but you better be willing to deal with more Inkjets or Stingray. At the end of the day, should things be banned? Well, it's up to you and the people you're playing with. If they're up for it or you want to try it, then go for it. I myself might be experimenting with a few restrictions, even though I'm actually pretty okay playing in the current meta, despite my problems with it. Bans aren't going to be mainstream either way, but I hope it maybe gives people a way to experiment with and bring a bit more new life into the game while you wait for Splatoon 3. But let me know your guys' thoughts on bans below, and I'll see you all in another video.